Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, today I'm actually going to be covering a webtoon, and this webtoon is Tower of God. Now, I'm not actually doing anything to do with the content directly. This is just a still image of one page from the entire comic. I don't think that I'm going to get into much of a problem for it, but nonetheless, I'm just going to jump to my stationary logo here in the background. Okay, so, nonetheless, let's just go through what happens in Tower of God. So, Tower of God is a multi part series. And when I say multi part, I mean you're going to go for the entire climb of the tower, right? And there's so much that happens with the climb when it comes to the main character and the side characters who join the main character, and all the side leaping arcs and all of their stories interlink and they follow this flow of something even greater. But let's start it off with the first three characters. And the first three characters that we are truly introduced to are Hiron, Balm, and Rachel. Now, Balm and Rachel, the first thing we see is the running from the two. Balm is chasing after Rachel. He tackles her and he stops her, and then she says she's going up the tower and he's going to follow. Now, this is basically a very, very crude push together of what's going on. But there's a lot more that gets explained to us as you go through the book and not book, the webtoons. And obviously, if you want to catch up on everything, you can just go to webtoons and view the entire series. Tower of God is free to view on webtoons, so you can just go and view all of your episodes for free. You only have to pay for FastPass, so this isn't like a paid service or a paid book. This is something that anybody can get their hands on. You just need a device with access to the internet. And obviously, you need enough internet to be able to download the book or to read the book online. So let's continue on with the story at that point. So when we first get into the story, we see that Balm is chasing this girl Rachel. He chases her all the way to the door. The door opens and Balm gets pulled through. But before all of this was that little epilogue that came out um, with the first few parts where it says everything lies on top of the tower, riches and wealth, power and status, um, vengeance and greed, or the ability to transcend all such things. That is something that's given to us as the very first statement. And also something else that a lot of people don't realize is it's part of the end user tales. Now, the end user tales is the broader spectrum universe by the author called SIU. He purposefully gave it that particular title so that he can branch off into many different forms in many different places as he wants with the comic. So this story is just one of them. And when you find out what the end user tales are, you really get the idea of how much is going on within this. Within the end user tales is a special being called an Axis. Now, the Axis has a superior power and he's undefeatable by regular individuals. Now, I'm not 100% sure on all of the theory and the way that it's formed up, but basically, from what I can glean at the the information, excess users can only be killed by other excess users, and excess users basically have this ultimate power to reshape and rewrite the flow of a story. From what we know of the tower, there's one excess who we are given information for. His name is Enryu. No, sorry, not Enryu, Phantaminum, the riddle. And there can be even more excesses because one of the other things that was stated in the fandom for the wiki is that inside the tower, Enryu is the only known access. And using words like only known, it says there could be more. And if there are more accesses, then it's going to be somebody who we most probably following. Or it's somebody who's hiding in the shadows who's following this entire story from start to end. Right, so that's the whole thing. But I would suspect that SIU would actually include the access into a story from the start. It's a nice way to hide them in. You just have to have any individual who's so mysterious that you're not going to flush out his backstory or her backstory, and everything about them is only developed in the story as they go up. Their story will develop very, very slowly. They won't get a lot of backstory all at once. You'll only know tidbits about them. You won't know who they truly are. They'll have missing memory. It's generally how you would find an access. And then immediately knocks out one person from the first three people who we meet, and that is Rachel. Now, if it is Hedon, then he's in the shadows and he's been watching this journey from the start all the way to where they are in the story right now, and he could be one of the authors, basically the access. And the last person who has that potential would be Balm. Now, although I am saying it could be Balm, there are reasons why I'd say it is him, and those are other things that I will go into at a later stage when I finally get to the important part of that. But I just broke down the basics of the universe in which they love. So let's get to the tower. In this place, there's a legend, the outside world, there's a legend that someone once started building a tower to reach the stars where everything that he wished and desired for was. And he built this tower and it was massive and he climbed up until he reached the stars. And what was left behind was the tower. And people then started to make pilgrimage to the tower and try to climb it. And that is the climb of the tower. And that's what we know of the tower itself. That's all that we have really from any type of reliable story. If you go into the wiki, there's a whole lot more about the tower. And when you go through all of this and you're going through the story, some of the things that make it very, very specific to Balm and why I'm saying that he's the Axis. In the first season, we see Balm stacking up rocks to climb up on his pebble tower to reach the light, where all of his dreams lay. Right? He wanted to be free from his cabin. He wanted to go out to the greater world. He literally had that goal in the start. Finally, when he's liberated, he gets more information, more knowledge. He changes quite a bit, and he becomes the Balm we meet in the story from episode 1. Now, when Balm is transported into this tower, this magical place, a lot happens, and you have to understand a little bit more about the tower. Now, I'm just giving a brief understanding of this story. I will get to that first part, the first floor, everything that happens there in a little bit. So, what happens inside the tower is every time any individual wishes to go up a floor, they must complete a test. Now, originally, tests were completed by the administrator slash guardians of the tower. They are these big sea divine fish, basically, it's the easiest way I can say it. Sea divine fish or Shinsu divine fish that inhabit the tower and live on every floor. They regulate the Shinsu to give people power. We know very little about them. We know that they possess the power of the colossal soul, and that's what gives them the massive power. So, yeah, that's one of the secrets behind the Guardians. Okay, the next thing to note about all of these Guardians and everything in the tower is every time you wish to go up a floor, they will give you a test based on the level of your desire. So if you desire something that's very, very likely to be impossible, the level of your test will be almost impossible. And if you can supersede that impossibility, if you can climb over it, you will go up another level. And that's how it goes, basically. So you have to conquer whatever is put in front of you. And this is how the tower works. Now, there was the original method, but after the first 13 climbed up to the top of the tower, they changed the system. The king of the tower, when the 13 first reached the top, ended up becoming Jahad. He made a contract to be the king of the tower, and when he became the king of the tower, that is when this year actually happened, and this is where the confusion really begins to pack quickly. Moving on from this point, the next thing to note about it is after he set up his new system, anybody who climbed to the top of the tower now had the right to actually administer a test on the floors to see whether you were worthy to climb up the tower. And since those who climbed the towers and ascended to the highest point received the name Ranker, rankers became noted with great prestige. And the reason for the name ranker is they are ranked based on their skills, performances, and their overall impact in the tower. So if they go out and they take part of war and they don't kill enough people, their rankings can fall. If they go out and they try and pull a political notion and they fail, their ranking goes down. And that's how they are punished and that's how they are awarded depending on what goes on within their particular environment. So yeah, that's what I have for the first episode on Tower of God. I hope to catch you all in the next one and see you all then.